Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's great to have you all here. We're excited. So we're happy to have you at our Up9 webinar, How Cycode Prevents Software Aggressions in Kubernetes and Kafka with Contract Testing. I'll present, my name is Noga and I'm going to be hosting the webinar. I'll present our speakers in a moment. First of all, I'll tell you a little bit about Up9. So Up9 is a fairly new startup. It provides a fully automated and effortless platform to help engineers increase productivity, whether they have a microservice and event-driven, or in other words, a cloud-native based architecture and system. So the way that we do that is by continuously observing your environment and auto-generating tests, mocks, and API specs for it. We'll see this more in action later, but first, let me present our great speakers. So we have with us Dor Atias. Well, both speakers, I have to say, I've known for a few years, and they're really great guys, and they're they're experts in their field. So I think you'll enjoy listening to them very much today. So we have Dor. Dor is the VP Engineering at Cycode. He has over 10 years of experience in software engineering, DevOps, cloud, and SaaS. So you can see that he's quite a guy. He led the engineering group at Blazemeter after it was acquired by CA Technologies, and he was a key member of the team prior to the acquisition. And if you want to follow him, you can see his LinkedIn link below. And here from Up9, we have Rafael Botbol-Weiss. He's currently the VP. Hi, Rafael. He's the currently VP Customer Experience at Up9. He has more than 20 years of experience in innovative enterprise software. He was head of customer experience at Broadcom, which acquired CA Technologies that acquired Blazemeter. If you find it hard to follow, you're not the only one. And at Blazemeter, he was also a founding team member, and he also founded Blaze Labs, which was Blazemeter's open source solutions. And his LinkedIn is here as well. So just a little bit about what we're going to go through today. So we'll start out with some housekeeping. There'll be an intro, then Rafael and Dor will speak about microservices and their challenges. They'll move on into contract testing. You'll see a really interesting demo, and we'll finish up with Q&A. So you'll get the recording after the webinar. I'll send you an email with everything in it. We also have a Q&A session in the end, and you can ask any question you want. You can also ask questions during the webinar. If you look at your bottom panel, there's a place where there's like a little, I don't know, two bubbly signs that say Q&A, and you can ask any question that you want, and we'll ask the presenters in the end. We have actually 3 polls throughout the webinar. So at some point, I'll ask you to fill out a simple question, and we'll share the results either at the end or after the webinar. And at the end, we'll also share a survey like in the email. So we'll appreciate your feedbacks to help us get better and keep creating content that is valuable and helpful for you. So with that said, I'm going to pass it on to our distinguished speakers and let you enjoy what they have to share today. So Rafael, please take it away.
Thank you, Noga. And I know, full disclosure, it's so fun to work. It's always fun to work with friends. And our small group here is again together with a new webinar, although the logos have changed slightly. So Dor, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
You've been busy lately.
Yeah, it's a new startup, new challenge. So it's, but I'm talking with you all the time, so we are fine.
A customer friend in a new startup. So tell us a little bit about what you've done lately. I know Cycode is in the security, which is like the DevSecOps is a really hot topic these days. What Cycode are doing?
So first of all, again, as Noga mentioned, my name is Dor Atias. Glad to be here with my friends Noga and Rafael. I'm the VP Engineering of a company called Cycode, a new startup company, a cyber startup company that founded 1 year ago. And basically what Cycode is doing is to protect the DevOps pipeline from code to cloud. In the DevOps pipelines, we have, let's say, 3 stages: code, build, and production/cloud. And we are there to protect every stage of this DevOps pipeline, and also to make sure you as a security engineer or DevSecOps engineer, you will see the real risk in your DevOps pipeline. In the era of everything is code, infrastructure is code, every change in the code or in the build can compromise your entire production system. So we are there to protect you, protect your organization from your developers that will do mistakes. And that's it about Cycode, I think.
So, you know, we're going to talk about how it actually works, you know, with regards to where do we see the problems, but I'm sure people in the audience is kind of who didn't by accident or thought about really good before making the GitHub from private to public, you know, maybe I have like a secret there. Maybe someone forgot to remove and include that was or environment variables. So how Cycode helps with that? Like how do you guys do it?
So basically, Cycode has multiple scanners that scans your resources in your DevOps pipeline. As I said, we have scanners on the source control management system you have, like GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, Azure DevOps, etc. And we also have scanners on the build system, like Circle CI, GitHub Actions, Jenkins, and more. And also for your cloud, AWS, Google, and Azure. And we have multiple scanners for each stage. For example, we have secrets detection. We can scan your repositories for hard-coded secrets and tokens. Not only your repositories, but the public activity of your employees. For example, a developer can take the AWS secret and use it on his public repo for Playground or for testing. It happens.
That's cool.
Yeah. Also, we are many developers sharing code in Slack, in Stack Overflow, in GitHub Gist, in a lot of platforms to share with their colleagues. So we are there to scan the internet and search for code snippets that potentially is the organization IP. We also have access management to make sure that every developer has the right access, and there are no stale admins or people that have access to resources that they shouldn't have. As I said before, in the era of cloud and IAC, infrastructure as code files, we are there to scan your repositories and to scan even in the PR pull request stage to make sure nothing will compromise your cloud, because infrastructure as code will eventually will be deployed to cloud. On top of that, we have the ability to remediate every alert you have. You can use your tools that you're using inside your organization. For example, Jira, ServiceNow, Zendesk, PagerDuty, Opsgenie, a lot of cool integrations that you're using in order to simplify the way you are getting the alerts. And the vision of Cycode is, because as a security engineer or even as a DevOps engineer or even a regular backend engineer, you want to know, you don't know everything about your organization, about your DevOps pipeline. And the vision of Cycode is to be an end-to-end DevOps pipeline security platform, so you can see everything inside one platform for every stage on your DevOps pipeline.
Yeah, and I looked into your product as well, and what fascinates is that it's not only doing all those stuff, but it's also making it as part of the normal engineer day-to-day job, right? Like I don't need to go and think about it. It's literally, it's like integrating into the ID. It's integrating to my GitHub. It's there in my Travis Jenkins. You automatically do that over the internet. So if by accident something happened, the right person gets the notification for that, and they can take action. And I think today it's really amazing to see the pipeline from what the developer needs to do, write the code and getting into production is so complicated. It's really hard to find a product that does a lot of things, but but let the user code, right? That's what is important here.
Our purpose is not to disturb the developer workflow, but to keep an eye on it, of the developer, and make sure there won't be any mistake that will hurt the organization.
I'm sure most of us are great drivers, but we still put our seatbelt on, and we are really happy that we have the airbags and the car is really safe. Although we are good drivers, we prefer to have that because everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
What it is. So super cool. And, I know that you guys started, with Kafka, and you started with basically every buzzword I can do, you have it. So for me, it was really weird at the beginning, like, when you are a startup, you want to go and just get those features ASAP, get validation from the customers, maybe refactor it later on, do that. So most startups go with like some kind of a monolith, right? Even, back in the Blazemeter days, we had to do something. We took Drupal and we worked with something, and okay, that's the first version, and we take it from there. But when we started working together, I was amazed. You have like so many services. You started microservices day one. Why?
So I worked with microservices and also with a big monolith a few years, and I'm not a big believer of monolith. I think that it's a mistake to start, even if you want to run fast, it's a mistake to start with monolith. Because in the beginning, as you said, you want to run fast and deliver features, but you see that from time to time, from feature to feature, it will take a lot of time to onboard new employees, to make the new features. And I think that it works. I mean, take 1 month, take a few weeks, think about your architecture, think about your vision, and start doing it with microservices. You will see that it will increase your velocity at the end. You will see the fruits, very, very soon, and it will increase your velocity, your quality, and your product will be much more better, and you will run much more faster right after the first features. It will run very fast.
So you say you get the ROI kind of maybe the first month is a bit slower, but after that, not only you catch up, you make it way faster to deploy.
Yeah, because if you will start with monolith, in the beginning you will have 1, 2, 3 features very fast, but then you will see it will be very hard to maintain it, very hard to write new features, because you need to know everything about your product, about the big monolith. So it's not. It's a lie to start with a monolith. That's my opinion.
It's interesting. That's good. And I remember from back in the days that you mentioned it's also really hard to onboard an engineer on that, because they need to kind of understand how to deploy a huge block of code rather to have something that is simple and be focused on that. Now we'll talk about the blast radius later on, I guess. Okay, so you have Microsoft. Can you tell us a little bit from what you can share about, what was the architecture that you thought about? What were did you go with, star topology? Did you went to like service to service, those kind of things?
Yeah, sure. So we have today more than 50 microservices. We are not abusing it. I must say we are doing it on, I think, on a smart way. What we have in the middle of all the microservices is Kafka. With Kafka, we can every service has its own responsibility about its mini product, and he can produce his message to every consumer. So with that architecture, service A that team A is doing, and service B that team B is doing, is completely decoupled, and with Kafka, you can make sure that the things are being made in an async way, and you can make sure that you can, even with Kafka, replay the data if something gets lost. If one pod is one service, I'm talking Kubernetes language. If one service is down, you can scale it up, and it will drink again all the data from the Kafka. Also, we have like service to service communication when we need it. For example, if you need I don't know, to upload a file, you can't do it through Kafka because Kafka has limitations. I think 25 megabytes, if I'm not mistaken. So if you need to do something in a sync way, do it. But with a Kafka, with the Kafka in the middle, you have your own territory. You decide what to do, what to produce to the the crowd, and you don't care who will take the message and do whatever they want to do with this message. Also, one word about our architecture. We have like the UI, and because we have a lot of microservices, we have the UI that talks with the BFF, backend for frontend.
He's your best friend.
Yeah, Rafael, my best friend. But with this example is backend for frontend, and the backend for frontend, what it does actually is to talk with the API gateway, and the API gateway, and with the API gateway, the BFF can talk with a lot of microservices and do the magic for the UI, so the UI can get the data in a simple way, and we see that it makes our life much more easier because the services are doing it, on their way, and then the BFF is the smart guy in place that does the magic for the UI.
So the front-end guys get the data the way they need it. You can, maybe use an endpoint or GraphQL, those kind of technologies for the front-end guys. Well, you still on the back end be able to decouple the services and also kind of have them in asynchronous. One thing I've heard about Kafka is in addition to the event-driven mechanism, it also allows you to kind of put some kind of in electricity, like a diode type of thing, which throttles. Like if you have a spike, the Kafka gets it first, allows Kubernetes to kind of spin up more pods to remediate the topic overwhelming and then go back. So I think more and more of these use cases we'll see in the industry due to, it's not just like traditional Black Friday. You don't know when your customers are going to use it. Like you don't know when I'm going to release. Maybe my release will suddenly send so many APIs to your front end, or suddenly I deploy Cycode in a new line of business and all the developers start. So you need to figure that out. And I think that's a really cool way to do that. I'm sure there are engineers in the audience, some of them, looking at what they have right now, they thinking breaking the monolith, but we've all been there. And as an engineer, if the VP of engineering is like, yeah, I want microservices, easy. But what happens if you already have a monolith? Or, it's not even a monolith, but the services are big, okay? We have like 4 big backend services. How I, as an engineer, can go to my VP of engineering and tell them, listen, it will help you in your business. It will help us, but I need some time. How would I build that case?
Okay, that's a great question. I think all the engineers in here should go to their VP and talk about it. And I will explain how to do it, maybe. With monolith, as I said before, you have because it's a monolith, you have one point of failure. You can write on class A that's responsible for a mini product, and because you did there a mistake, it will hurt all your product. Imagine you have now 2 developers that are working on something, and one of the developers needs to change something on the infra. They want to, I don't know, increase a package that they are using. Maybe it will hurt the other guy that is now doing a feature B that is not related at all to feature A. I mean, it can cause conflicts in the developments, logic conflicts, and even Git conflicts. And I saw it when I worked with Monolith. There are many Git conflicts and conflicts within the people, the developers, because they are touching the same files, because it's the same product. Creating a new feature. If I want to do, for example, to add one line, and I saw it as a developer, you need to add a new API for one page in the product. I need to spin up all the monolith and know all the monolith, how it acts in order to add a simple thing. And And also with microservices, every team or every person is responsible for its own mini product, for its own service, and he doesn't care, not really, but he doesn't care about the other services. He is responsible, he has his own territory, and
isolated from other changes.
Exactly. Decoupled, isolated, exactly. Also with Kafka, I know you talked about microservices, but with Kafka, as I said before, because it's in an async way, you can replay the data all the time. You can scale up with Kubernetes your deployments, so you can consume more messages from Kafka. You can scale up all the entire environment in a second. I can say that before, I think 3 weeks ago, we had a new client that has a lot of data, and we saw that the sync with his data is taking a lot of time. So what we did is just to spin up, to scale the deployment, that the service that is responsible for syncing the data, only this deployment from 1 replica, to 5 replicas, and then we extend the Kafka partition, and it become much more faster, and we did it only for 1 pod. We didn't need to do it for all the product, because it's only one microservice that responsible for this specific issue. And also sorry, Rafael, one more thing is that the onboarding process is much more faster. You hire now 1, 2, 3 engineers. You know that you need them for service A, service B, and service D, let's say, and you teach them only these services. They touch only these services, they focused and they become an expert only on these services, and it takes much less time to onboard them and teach them about the product.
So to kind of summarize it, if I can know, I need to go to my VP of engineering and tell them like, hey, we need to move to microservices, and they ask me, come on, Rafael, stop saying buzzwords, okay? Here I can throw buzzwords myself. No, listen, it's like, it will help us onboard new developers, whether if they're moving between line of businesses, right, in a big organization, or even if it's a startup, right? You're like, you know that you're going to grow faster next year. This is part of the things that you need to be aware. It will be easier to onboard them. It will be cost effective in our infrastructure, right? I don't need to spread everything. I'll be able to spin up and spin down just for that. And also the blast radius, as you said, like, okay, I change let's say I upgrade my Python, right? And there is a backward compatibility. I do it for my service. You can still do it whatever you want for your service. You don't have to obey my Python infrastructure change right now. Of course, we may want to be aligned with that at some point, but for now, if I screw up my service, it's just mine, not everyone else. Okay, so fine, but I'm sure, you had a little bit challenge, like it sounds really cool, microservice, right? Yeah, no problem, but you said you have over 50 microservices. You already mentioned you're using Kubernetes, and like that means you have so much services that you understand it's worth the effort of implementing I would say half-matured technology to manage those services. Tell me about the challenges that you had with microservices.
So we are a small startup. I mean, when we start, we didn't have a lot of developers. So what we did is to have like a common classes and packages for all the microservices. For example, if you are using Kafka, so you need Kafka client. We did like a Kafka client for all the services. If you're using Postgres, Mongo, you have client for this, and you have a common baseline that every service will use. What we did also is to have like a small script in Bash or Python, I don't remember exactly, but we have a script that you can spin up a new service, the folder, the project, immediately, and it will be in production with the DevOps pipeline immediately without doing anything else. So one of the challenges we have is that we need generic pipeline for the DevOps. We need to make sure we have convention. Because we're a small startup, we can't have a big stack. We can use I don't know, Python and Go and everything, because it requires a lot of knowledge. So what we did is to have like common a generic Helm chart if you're using Kubernetes. So you have like Helm charts, or you can use a generic Terraform module for your deployment. And that way you can easily create new services. You can easily deliver new features. Also, what we have is a challenge with authorization and authentication with all the microservices. What we did basically is to put like an API gateway before. So you have like Nginx, you have Kong, you have the AWS API gateway, you have Google API gateway, you can choose. And with that, the Nginx or the API gateway itself is the one that's responsible for the authentication and for the authorization. So the service is, the microservice is really focused on its job, and without focusing on other things like authorization and authentication. The request won't come to it without the API gateway authenticate the request. Also, what we saw is that we have a problem debugging requests that coming from the client. And so what we did is using, again, the API gateway. We put like correlation ID in the API gateway and put sorry, I talked in English.
It's so good.
In the API gateway, we put the tenant ID, we put the correlation ID, and that in that way we can track the requests that came from the UI within the microservices, and we understood the flow. Also, one of the big challenges, that's why we're doing this this webinar, is that we had a problem to follow which APIs, who is using APIs and where. For example, like I said before, the BFF is using a lot of microservices and requests, and I can't maintain and follow, as I said, if I have 50 or 60 microservices. And I can't make sure no one is breaking the APIs between the services and changing maybe the API response. You shouldn't do it. You should be all the time backward compatible, but people are doing mistakes. The developers are doing bugs, even me. So you need to, Yeah, I have bugs sometimes. You need to you don't have the time and energy to maintain all these APIs, and you don't know everything. You don't know what service A. You don't know if service A is using service B or maybe service C. So you need to follow this and make sure everything is aligned and nothing is being broken.
To me, I will tell you something you didn't know, but when we worked with Ilya, and one of the things that you guys developed.
I just want to say, Ilya is one of Cyco developers.
Yes, the best. I don't know if the best, but he's really good. One of the things that were a challenge was that what happened when the event, like the transaction started with an event on Kafka. So it was like, back then I showed them on App9 how we just put a message on the queue, which is like, we don't, schema validation, those kind of things. But it's like, yeah, I wrote a script for that to be able to just do it, because otherwise I cannot start the process. So it sounds to me like, with the backend, like the BFF to generate the traffic from there and understand the relationship and those kind of things. I think that's what kind of, led us together about the contract testing methodology, because on the one hand, it's easy to onboard someone on a service, but when you have 50 services, you need to kind of figure out how you are connecting with the dots, right? So I was wondering, you have like a Swagger, we have Kafka and we have the BFF and microservices and those kind of things. One second, something happened here. With contract testing, and I'll just say a little bit for the sake of who doesn't know about what is contract testing, is that basically in the microservices, you have one which is the provider. Like let's say Door is developing the authorization service, right? So Door is like top of the art person. He cares about his code. His code is his art. And he doesn't just, tell me, hey, Rafael, if you want to work with me, here is a Swagger file, and that's it. Go read the code. Dor cares about me, also about his precious time. So he creates a contract for me. Why he does that? Because as we said, you plan, and then the ROI will come really fast. So he creates a contract. So I'll be able to consume and better understand the contract between what I want to do and what Dor is providing. So a contract will be the open API spec, like Swagger, those kind of things. It will be the tests, and it will be a mock of the service. So when I have those three, as a consumer, let's say I want to, one of my APIs, or I need to do something and use the authorization service before I do something. First of all, I look at the Swagger and I know the endpoints. That's a good start. Second, I get all the posts and everything already there. I understand if it's a string. I can see examples for that, and we'll show it in the demo probably. The second thing is that I can literally have an environment on my laptop, which is Dor's service mock and the test. So let's say I want to see how the request looks like. I want to generate it from my laptop. I can literally do that, even in something that is like Python or even something like Postman, and then take the code once it's working, put it into my IDE, and that's it. Now I'm done with the integration. All I need to do is maybe change the variables and those kind of things. So for me as a consumer, it's much, much easier to have those kind of things, even to the point that, let's say I may ask, okay, that was the happy path, but I want to spin up the mock in some kind of a resilient mode, right? So, the happy path is either 200 okay or 403 bad request. But because I'm coding, right? But I finished my code, I want to test something, then Dor come and say no for these things. Sometimes you will get unauthorized. Sometimes you'll get 207, like partial successful. You need to figure that out. Sometimes I will tell you, hey, you need to reduce the amount of RPS. I allow only 100 calls from your service to my per minute. Those are things that as a developer, I don't see them in the contract usually. Maybe not, but the mock and the test can help me understand what is the expected results. And that's why contract testing is a way, it's like saying Agile is a methodology of how you develop in a microservices environment. And before we move, Noga, do we want to do a poll now?
Yes, perfect. So I'm going to send out a poll. We'd appreciate everyone's participation. It'll take you literally 10 seconds.
Okay.
And you should see it popping up right now.
Oh, this is cool. So for the right answer, we will give the recording of this webinar.
Exactly. Give it another few seconds for everyone to fill out. Thanks to everyone who's participating.
Okay. So tell me, Dor, what are the benefits that you've seen? And again, just like microservices, it needs a leap of faith, right? Because at the first it's hard. What were the contract testing benefits that you saw in once you implemented that way of working with the microservices?
So I'm using contract testing with App9 because, as I said before, I don't have the time or the energy to maintain all the microservices and to understand what APIs are using for every service. And also, as I said before, we have the BFF. So in the BFF, it's like the smart guy in the system that goes to all the microservices and do the magic for the UI. And I need to make sure that nothing breaks. So with App9, I can understand and monitor and schedule a test every time and make sure that it doesn't break. We have like a CI/CD in our R&D organization. So every commit goes to staging and production. And I want to make sure that nothing breaks in the contract between the BFF to the microservices or even between the microservices itself. With App9, I can make sure with the scheduling the system, scheduling the test, sorry, I can make sure nothing breaks. We have a lot of APIs. Really, I can't maintain or track them. So with easy deployment of App9, I can know the real traffic and the real APIs that service A is using to communicate with service B or service C, or even to understand from service A, we need to take the parameter X to service B, and from service B, we need to take the response field Y to service C, and that's the only way I can do it. I can maintain, a wiki page about that, but it will take me forever. Also, contract testing is very helpful when you have Swagger. And so when you have a monolith, for example, you have all the APIs, so you can download a package that does the Swagger Explorer automatically for you. But when you have microservices, a lot of microservices, and you have an API gateway, it's not easy to make. I don't think it's possible to make a Swagger file from the API gateway. So with App9, I have a very clear picture and clear list of the APIs that every service has, and also all the services that comes through the API gateway. And that's one of the projects, Rafael, we are doing now, the Swagger automatically that App9 is doing for me, for my customers. So I won't invest any time or energy to maintain this list of APIs and the API documentation, because, okay, I released a new feature, there are new APIs, App9 will collect it for me, and then I can forward it to my customers.
That's super cool. And just for the sake of time, I think we'll jump into the demo. So we'll do a short thing and kind of show you guys. Contract testing is, as I said, it's like saying agile. And then you can say if you want to do it with Jira and you do it with other stuff. What we've done is, first of all, what you see here right now, of course, it's not Scicode. It's just like an open source. No, I really like the feature of orders in Scicode, So it's just an open source application called Wavsock. And what we've done, we just installed it on like one of our Docker Compose site and implemented Kafka to it, attached App9, and voila, you can see that. That was done without any human interaction, actually, completely just by looking at the traffic and doing that. And to connect the dots with what Dor said, think of it, here you see maybe like 6, 7 circles. When you have 50, 100, you really need the ability to understand who talks with whom, even on the service level, right? So today, if I want to make a change to orders, I want to understand who's relying on me. Like frontend will call me, and I want to know who I'm going to call, like shipping and user and those kind of things. So if I introduce the change, right, I want to maybe run the front-end tests that are related to me. And I also want to make sure that I virtualize shipping, user, cards, and payments. So I'll be able to work with them to complete my flow of orders. And the second thing is, okay, Kafka is kind of, the star, the sun in the solar system here. I want to understand, am I a consumer? Am I a provider? Like, do I put something on the message, on the topic or not? So this is something, and one of our customers kind of said that, you guys show me what sometimes I can't explain to my users, because it's tough. It's really hard to kind of put that mind, and everything change all the time. So because we look at the traffic, you can always see that. Then we move to the contract.
Traffic, but also the Kafka traffic. I don't know if yeah, okay.
Yeah, so here it's kind of, do you use an API Kafka, or you're using like a message, and those lines represent like asynchronous traffic. So for example, we mentioned Swagger, and sometimes those libraries, they build, the schema. Sometimes, when you have a get, it always works. But when you have a post, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, the ID here is string, and what is the ID as a string? Is it going to be like a GUID, a hash table, those kind of things? It's tough to know that kind of thing. Also, sometimes you want to know if a parameter is optional or mandatory, right? So because we look at the traffic, we're able to kind of show that on the browser. So, Door will be able to tell the developers, or telling the developers, hey, you go to App9 to read how to work with that endpoint. If you need, an example of that, go to the traffic and look at the shipping, right? So here you can literally see the request, the response. So as a developer, I'm like, okay, I understand what I need to do. I need to send this ID. That's what I'm going to get. And I can literally click here, do try now, and test it like on the development environment, which, it's a one-time thing that the DevOps kind of said, okay, this environment is development. I'm going into the development environment. You get it to that. If you want to move to production, no problem. You just change the host name, do it to production. You can do that there. So as a developer, it's really easy, and it makes my life easier because App9 fills out everything here. That if you want to change, of course, you can go and can say, yeah, let's just add an ID here. Probably not in Hebrew, but in other language.
I want to add to your word that imagine you have a bug, okay, and you know that the expected response code is 204, I don't know, and then you monitor your APIs because you know that two services are talking with each other with this API, and you see now 400, something that you didn't expect for. Here with the try now, you can just simulate it, and you will get, if something failed, you will see that it failed because you saw that it was 204 all the time, and now it's suddenly 400. So this tool it's really good for debugging an issue because you can inject the right APIs with the right params, and it's super helpful even to us.
Yeah, it's especially, if it's a new code, will it work like that in staging or not? And you just need an easy way to just send that, which reminds me about the Kafka part, which, even if you have something and, everybody are spending their time, and again, every minute a developer doesn't write code, it's a less feature for the customer. It's a bug fix that they could have done in that time. So even if they do it for the synchronous, asynchronous is really tough. Like a message on the bus, literally Kafka allows me to put whatever message I want. And even if I do that, sometimes I may forget that, or if it will be a number, I don't know if it's which type of number, if it's and here, you can not only look at the message on the bus, you can literally put the message on the bus to test your code. So if I deploy 2 orders and I want to make sure that now it works, I can literally create a message by myself, put it there. And one of the features we're also going to do is kind of do a schema validation, because if you accidentally push a wrong schema to the message, it's not just one service, maybe like 10 services are now going to consume that. You're going to get a lot of alerts in your New Relic, and your DevOps will be angry at you. What did you say, Dor?
I said you broke the contract.
Yeah. Now, if you will be able to tell that to the developer, like you will take them Kafka all the way to the left, then I will not even commit that code because I know it's going to break. So I kind of shift left that value to that. And of course, everything here is, you can just download, and it's going to take a while to download that, but you will get all the tests, all the mocks in the language that you prefer. If it's Python or JUnit, you can use it locally because it's your artifact, or we can put it on GitHub. And the idea is with GitHub, then the users can consume it in their environment, right? And then sometimes they'll say, oh, where would I keep that? It's like, no, it's in GitHub. Don't worry. Just, when you do Git pull, you'll get that as part of your stuff, ready to go the way you feel it. Noga, how we were on time?
So we do have a few questions from the audience. If there's anything additional that you'd like to share, this is the time. But if not, then we'll dive straight into the Q&A. And
go to the Q&A.
I'll do that. And while I'm just getting the last questions in order, I'm going to send another poll for everyone to answer.
Oh.
Okay, so our first question is from Oren, and it's for Dor. Actually, I had a few questions. So first question is asking Dor is, are your teams built around the services?
That's a great question. In a small startup, it's a bit tough to do it because everyone wants to be involved on everything, especially Israelis. So it's really tough. I do see that in the future when we will be big, I think that the right thing to do is to have like group of microservices that related to a team, and they can focus on these services and they can be expert on these services. For now, because we are a small startup, everyone knows everything, but it's not scalable. So I think the answer, I didn't did the decision yet. I didn't do the decision yet, but I think that in the future, the answer is yes. It will be team that responsible for a group of microservices.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers the question. He also has another question. He's asking, if I'm working on feature number 2 and influence service number 1, then who is handling the changes in service number 1, making sure it didn't have any impact like on functional automation and performance?
So I think it's more a question for Rafael. So I will let him answer this question.
So Rafael, take it away.
So just to see that I got it correctly, if I'm working on service 2 and I need a change on service 1 for that, what do I do? Was that the question?
How do you
how do you handle the changes on service number 1 when you're working on feature number 2, making sure it doesn't have any impact?
Interesting.
Yes,
so
Owen is saying
it's a classic regression between services. So that's, first of all, the first and foremost is that with the microservices, you always have the ability to kind of, state the version of that service. So the contract, right? And service number 2 provider, they will kind of commit to like backward compatibility and will let you know if something happened. Then, so at one point, you know which version of the service you're going to work against. Why? Because you just downloaded the contract, right? And you work against that. For the provider of service 2, they will be able to kind of run the tests of the new service 1. So if I don't need anything from service number 2, I just download the contract, work against that, and get that when service number 2 will implement the backward, break the compatibility, they will know about it because they will run my tests, right? And it will be easier for them to do that because they will use my contract. They will see in App9 that, service 1 talks with service 2. The interesting part comes when, let's take the example. Let's say Dor is responsible for the authorization. I need Dor to change something in his service, so I will be able to implement mine. Let's say I'm introducing a slight change to the two-factor authentication, and I need Dor to add something to the JSON. What I can do is, first of all, take the contract from Dor, change it slightly, change the mock and the test slightly, and tell Dor, hey, Dor, listen, in order for me to work in the JSON, let's say username and password, I need you to add this small, let's say, geographical location, okay? I send it to Dor and I'm just using X and Y. Dor understands what I'm asking. He sees the test and the mock. I continue to work. Comes back to me and says, Rafael, that was great, but it's not X and Y as integers. You need to do them as float because that's how geographical work. And by the way, here is the new contract you can do. He understands what I need to do. He will probably tell me how it's different from what I've sent him. And I will probably build my code in such a way that that change is simple. So it's only in one place and it creates a better dev to dev language. Like it's instead of telling Dor, hey Dor, I need you to support geolocations. Like what do you want from me? This is a way to create dev to dev language and actually tie the teams together, but decouple the services.
Thank you for that. So we have one third question from Oren before we move on to the questions from the rest of the audience. How do you handle performance tests in terms of services? Is there a dedicated person for performance, or is the service team responsible for handling it?
Dor, how do you handle performance?
With Blazemeter, kidding. It relates to the first question because the team is responsible for the service. So the team is responsible for writing the logic, writing the unit tests, writing the contract with your tools or with automated tools like App9. The team is responsible for everything. That's the purpose of team, I think. I don't want to, work as a workflow like we used to, that I deliver something to someone else because I think it's redundant. You can use many tools. For example, Blazemeter you can use, and you can use open source tools like JMeter, Locust, and many more. But for your question, I think the team members are the ones that needs to make sure that it works good with load testing. And also you can do things around the API gateway to make sure you will handle API rate limit, for example, if you don't want to support a lot of requests. And also with Kubernetes, you can use HPA if you are familiar with, in order to spin up more pods and more resources to the microservice you need to scale to make sure your performance tests are running good.
Thank you. So we have two more questions from the audience. So Mark is asking, with microservices, the implementation may use service discovery solutions to manage routing from the API gateway to individual services without knowing the endpoint DNS addressing. So the question is, how does Up9 manage addressing to service endpoints that are dynamic in their endpoint addressing? Services could be load balanced and so on. Rafael, this one is probably for you.
Yeah, so Up9 basically just observe the traffic. We're not interfering, like let's say you have a cluster, you just attach Up9 as a sidecar, for example, or through your Envoy, and we observe the traffic. I guess the question is, okay, what happens if you create the mocks or something like that? One of the features, it's right now in beta, is that you're able to kind of say, okay, I want this service, and I want everything to be mocked one hop from it. And you will get a Docker Compose where we will automatically wire it, because it's not for like a load balancing perspective, just for you to have your own isolated environment in an easy way on your laptop. So hopefully I got it correctly. One, it's like we are not doing the routing, we just observe the traffic. And if you have one instance or 10 instances, you can just attach us to one of them or to all of them, doesn't matter. But we will understand that this is just one service and kind of combine the data, create the model and the machine learning part of it based on that the overall data to give you the test, the contract, and the mocks.
So we have one last question before we say goodbye. So this one's from Justin. He's asking if Up9, Rafael, this is for you, does Up9 support testing of internal facing APIs? This means APIs that require certificates for authentication or on a restricted domain.
Yes, no problem. So when you install us, we have many ways to kind of observe the traffic. That's not a problem. And also you can decide where to run the tests. Obviously you can run them from your laptop, from your Jenkins by yourself, because, let's say you're a Python shop, you get it in PyTest. If you like JMeter, you get it in JMeter, whatever you need. You can also use our agent that is sitting in your Kubernetes cluster to actually get it from the Kubernetes, test from the Kubernetes itself. So it depends how you want to do that, but the answer is yes, you can do that. it's actually mainly, if you look at like the architecture, Up9 will probably run more tests on your internal APIs rather than your gateway, because the gateway itself, you may be covering it with some end-to-end tests, or the Selenium, or just the backend end test. The microservices is the pain point that you probably don't have covered, or really low coverage there, because it changes all the time.
Thanks. Okay, so we're at the end of the hour. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Dor and Rafael, for a fascinating presentation and an interesting conversation. Like I said, we'll be sending the video to everyone. I encourage you to go to up9.com to learn more about what we do and about contract testing. And if you want to sign up for free, we have a free tier at up9.com/start, where you can start doing this all yourself. Have a great evening, or have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dor. Thank you, Noga. Have a great day, everyone.